From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the REPORT Husker Show.
Hello and welcome everyone to the 1011 Now streaming studio for another edition of the REPORT Husker Show. I'm Bill Rentschler, joined alongside by Sports Director Kevin Sjuts, Sports Reporter Chase Matteson. It is late on a Saturday night. Huskers win against Louisiana Tech this afternoon, 28-14. Kind of felt like it had a little bit of everything. There was some exciting plays. There was a lot of penalties. There was a weather delay. All sorts of fun things to talk about tonight.
You really punched that word late.
Yeah. Late. It is nearing 11 o'clock.
Well, you know what happens at 10 o'clock, right, Bill?
There's some show on somewhere.
10-11 News at 10.
10-11.
Your favorite local television program.
100%.
So just got done with the news. Chase did a great job anchoring our coverage here in studio. Both of us were down at Memorial Stadium watching Nebraska pick up its second win of the Matt Rule era. Matt Rule said after the game, it wasn't their best game, but there was some good in there. Let's not overlook the fact that the Huskers turned a 7-7 game at halftime. Fans were feeling a little uncertain about how this thing would turn. And then, boom, 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 3 touchdowns out of 4 drives to start the second half, and the Huskers come out of it with a 28-14 victory, 2-2 going into Big Ten play.
Chase, again, with this being your first year over the past several years against some of these, mid-major teams, Nebraska, again, would play them close, and then all of a sudden it's just a close, tight game going down to the very end. Thankfully, again, today we didn't have to deal with quite that much anxiousness from the fan base. Again, it was fairly settled. Again, coming out of the rain delay, again, with about 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Huskers were up 3 scores.
Yeah, what I've seen from, and this is not just Nebraska, across the Big Ten of, I guess you'd say, the more middle-of-the-pack teams, right? Not your top dogs, not your Michigans and Ohio States. When they do get to play a non-conference opponent, because the Big Ten's unique in having 9 conference games and it's a gauntlet, it seems like some of those middle-of-the-pack teams kind of start out slow. I kind of come from SEC country where you might have a team put up 40 in a quarter. But, as the game gets along, Nebraska looks like a better team. And I think this was really a tale of 2 halves. Weather-wise, it definitely was. But overall, just a very successful game on the ground. Really cool, really good to see successful rushing from a new-look backfield and a new-look quarterback than we thought 4 weeks ago. So
again, there was the whole talk. Again, is it going to be Sims? Is it going to be Haarberg? I think we found out kind of shortly before the game. Again, warm-ups. Haarberg was taking the snaps with Ben Scott and all the rest of it, but Haarberg started. And, again, throwing the ball probably could have been a little bit better, but he rushed for 160 yards, 1 touchdown today, and probably could have had even more. He had 1 long run called back by a penalty.
Yeah, Heinrich played pretty well. And Jeff Sims had practiced more this week than he did last week, but the coaching staff felt like, given the reps and the success that Heinrich had a week ago, that he was going to be their guy this week. What's going to happen next Saturday against Michigan, one of the best teams, not just in the Big Ten, but in all of college football. That's going to be a big decision for this coaching staff. Chase, I got to believe that Heinrich Haarberg is going to start for Nebraska next week. He's done such a great job managing the offense and not turning over the football. They had 0 turnovers today. And if you go back to last week, there was 1, but it was early in the game, and Heinrich bounced back very nicely from it. And I think that is what must happen in order to have a chance against the Wolverines.
Yeah, if you want to sniff a win next week, you have to win that turnover battle. You can't be – and again, they didn't turn the ball over today, but they did put it on the deck 3 times. And they managed to recover all 3. But they're up to -5 now, Chase, in the turnover margin for the season.
Yeah, you'd hope to, force a few more turnovers, especially with some inferior opponents these past 2 weeks. But, yeah, going back to what Kevin said, I think Heinrich just makes a little bit of smarter decisions from a throwing standpoint. I think he likes to move around just like Sims does, but I think Sims has a quick arm, and sometimes that led to him making just a knee-jerk reaction and firing a quick ball to the outside, and then it gets picked off like we saw in Colorado, and kind of looking down single coverages and just kind of honing in on one receiver in Minnesota. So, yeah, I completely agree. I think Heinrich will get the nod. We did see Sims come in for one play, but that was because Heinrich Haarberg's helmet got ripped off, so he had to go out for a play. And they threw Sims in there, and even Matt Rule said after the game that he didn't feel like Sims still looked 100%. So, but I think, even with Sims' health in question, even if he's 100% full go on Saturday, Haarberg's the guy right now and the guy that's got the winning going.
I think that the coaching staff has more confidence in calling a game with Heinrich Haarberg as the quarterback as opposed to Jeff Sims. I just feel like they understand Heinrich's skill set a little bit more, and they can stay pretty focused on what they want to call. It's maybe a little bit more simple, in my opinion. And we see the speed option, and you see some ISO runs with Anthony Grant. It just seems like they're more in their wheelhouse as opposed to the first couple of weeks in which maybe they felt like they needed to try to create a moment for Jeff Sims to make a play, or they were calling things hoping that Jeff Sims could read a defense correctly. And that's no disrespect toward Jeff Sims. I just feel like they understand Heinrich's skill set. And, maybe I should give the coaching staff a little bit more credit when I'm saying this, because as the weeks pass by, this coaching staff learns more about the team. So we're now concluded with week 4, and this coaching staff has a month worth of games to look at how this team operates and call a better game. So maybe that's not completely fair to look at it that way, because Jeff Sims' games that he started, they were at the front of the season where the staff was still learning the players. So maybe that's a little bit unfair judgment on my part, but I just feel, given last week and now this week, especially the way that they got into the groove, calling the plays in the third quarter, did they do anything fancy in the third quarter Absolutely not. It's like if you're playing NCAA football 2006, you've got about 4 plays on your sheet.
Yep.
And all you're doing is running those 4, and you're flipping them, whether you're going right, whether you're going left.
Yep.
I really liked it, especially just the commitment to the running game, and that totally aligns with what Matt Rule and his coaching staff has said since day one. We must be able to run the football. So when the game needed a moment for Nebraska to get some separation, that's how they did it. And that's them staying true to themselves.
First drive out of the half, 9 plays, all runs, 85 yards, took 5 minutes off the clock, touchdown, put them up 14-7.
And Anthony Grant ran really hard. And keep in mind where he was a couple weeks ago. He did not see the field against Colorado. So this is a guy that could have wavered in his confidence. It's a guy who could have maybe questioned his status with this coaching staff and with his teammates in the locker room, but he stayed confident. He stayed physical, and we saw 2022 Anthony Grant today. And he got better as the game went on. And the offensive line, I feel, they were able to wear down Louisiana Tech, Nebraska's O-line versus the La Tech D-line. So all those parts working together. Haarberg, offensive line, Grant running hard. That's how you end up with a 28-14 win.
Grant finishes with 22 rushes for 135 yards, 1 touchdown. 100 yards, though, came in the second half. So, again, I feel like...
And he had 76 on one drive in the third quarter. So,
and again, he also could have had more because he had a long touchdown that was also called back from a holding penalty.
Yeah, there was, I think, it could have been a record. There was, I think, 3 touchdowns, one for Louisiana Tech.
The kickoff return?
Called back. So
yep.
There was some points left on the board for anyone that had the over-under or whatever. Kevin, I do want to make one. I think you were... unintentionally, I think you made a great connection here. You mentioned playing NCAA 2006. That game, the cover athlete, Desmond Howard, what school did he go to? Michigan. The opponent next week, Michigan. Just a very small world. But I think Nebraska ran the ball really well. They're going to have to throw it better next week. But I just wanted to point out that little nugget.
But do you have to throw it better next week?
I mean, I think you have to
beat
at least,
Michigan.
I think they've found a new weapon in the pass game in Thomas Fidone. Man has 3 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. a big dude who can go up, and I think you at least have to get him one or two of those, maybe up the seam type of plays.
Yes, you have to throw it better. You're right, Chase. Heinrich was 8 of 17 today. It's all about when your completions come. Mm-hmm. And against Michigan and further on this season, you have to complete on third down. Sometimes the completion percentage can be a little bit misleading for the game's outcome. You look at some teams that just chuck the rock all around, you can complete almost 70% of your passes, but still lose. If you're completing first and second down swing passes that get you 3-4 yards, okay. But I really think for Heinrich, it's just got to be complete on third down. Keep the sticks moving. We don't need to launch into too much of a Michigan podcast here. Yeah. But if we just look at what you can glean from today and apply to what the offense looks like in the future, run the football and run it not just with Anthony Grant, but also Heinrich. And then you sprinkle in your pass game, use Fedoni, but you just got to make sure on third down you're hitting.
The one, watching the game today, kind of the one gripe I had with Haarberg running the option, which was, again, beautiful to see, he's going to have to pitch it eventually. I don't think between last week and this week he's actually pitched the ball on
the speed option. Yeah.
And the one that he took, of course, for 72 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown, I'm sitting here and I'm like, he's got to pitch that ball. He's got to pitch that. And then, of course, and then he turns on the wheels, and I am pleasantly surprised at how fast that man is.
Yeah, he pulled away.
Oh, yeah. He left those defensive backs in the dust.
Since you have a gripe, I'm going to give a praise, because we're balanced journalists
That's
here.
right. That's right.
The praise I have for Heinrich Haarberg, and I posted this on social media during the game, on the long touchdown run that was called back and the long touchdown run that stood, he had quite a bit of distance between him and the nearest defender. Yet both times, as he crossed the goal line, he tucked the ball and covered it like a baby with both arms. And in the moment, I was just like, no one's around you.
No,
but if that's just a habit, what a great habit to have, because you've seen the Dan Beebe, Leon Lett instances of the world. So little things. I can praise that. I can appreciate that.
I second that. It's like catching the fly ball with two hands.
Yeah.
It's basic stuff.
Well, and I think just one more nugget about Heinrich. I think one thing that the rushing game and him being dynamic in that speed option is just kind of, we see Anthony Grant turn it up in the second half, and I think the defense gets worn down by tackling Heinrich. He's not a small guy, and that allows for Anthony Grant to kind of continue, as Kevin was mentioning, they just continue to pound the rock in the third quarter. Obviously, we'd like to see them air it out more and pass when there's opportune times, but Louisiana Tech's defense got very depleted as the game went on. I think it was because of the 1-2 punch rushing attack. It wasn't. I think Heinrich keeping it on some of those options, he's just as hard to tackle at times than like an Anthony Grant.
He's a large man. I was kind of surprised again. Haarberg had 19 carries. Anthony Grant had 22 carries. Emmett Johnson only had 2 carries. Again, we thought we might see more of Emmett as well as Quentin Ives. I don't think Quentin didn't have a carry in this game. Billy Kemp, who again on Tuesday said, hey, if they need me to line up in the backfield and take a carry, I'll do it. He had 1 carry for a touchdown, 9 yards in the very beginning of the game there.
Anthony Grant left the game briefly, too, with the stinger. So when he came off the field, Chase, you had a great eye to see that as you were running the camera during the game. He noticed that Anthony's leaving, and at that moment, you're thinking, okay, Gabe Irvin's out for this season. Ramir Johnson is out for this season. Anthony Grant, it's like they just went from 1 to 3 this week. You know, is there a possibility he goes from 1 to 4? That's where Emmett Johnson came in, and he ran hard.
Yes.
Only had a couple of carries, but Anthony Grant's a reliable guy. So it's really good to see him run the way he did. And then having Heinrich carry the football really took some of the load off of Anthony Grant. I will say one thing, just having watched that game firsthand today, Louisiana Tech's not a terrible team.
They're a good
like,
team.
They had some concepts that they threw out there offensively that were pretty impressive, in my opinion. Sonny Cumbie, you can tell he's pretty creative with his play calling and the way he tried to get guys in space. That's one thing that they really like to do. And Nebraska's athletes just made the plays. They executed. But you got to believe La Tech in Conference USA, they're going to make some of those guys miss, and they're going to hit some big plays. And Miles Hurd, one of their defenders,
He was hitting people hard.
That guy might play on Sundays. He's pretty good. And Smoke Harris.
I was getting real tired of hearing his name because he has some shimmy.
Well, so you're watching the TV broadcast,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How many Smoke puns did they throw?
You know what? It was Matt Millen, and he kept the smoke puns to a minimum. I don't think I actually heard any. But again,
that's good. 'Cause I figured that the broadcast would be lathered with smoke puns, which you can, we're not going to say them out loud because that'd just be,
yes,
a little datified.
Yes,
but anyway, I'm glad to hear that. But he's a really nice ball player. I wasn't sure how he would fare in this game with his size. He's able to make plays as a sixth-year guy for the Bulldogs, but I came away from that pretty impressed.
Yeah, I thought so too. Their defense at times, really couldn't slow Nebraska down up front, and that's not too much to say against, a difference in size of the Big Ten linemen. But yeah, I was jokingly saying if you had Smoke Harris on a fantasy football team, he's a PPR monster because 13 targets, 10 catches, over 70 yards. You're looking at 17 points, and he was averaging less than 8 yards a catch, but they used him in kind of fun ways, almost like a Deebo Samuel type kind of short, stocky receiver. But yeah, some interesting offensive concepts, and they did have momentum. They scored 17 in the fourth quarter a week ago, nearly pulled off a comeback. This is a team that knows how to score the football, and Matt Rule even said that on his Thursday press conferences. They're not going to we're going to have to score to win. And I think the rain delay maybe slowed everyone down. Kevin, if you want to talk more about the rain delay, I left the game, but it just seemed like it dampened the mood at Memorial.
You could definitely tell it kind of sucked the air out of the place a little bit.
I'm not going to try to guess a number of how many people were in the stadium when the game ended and the clock hit 0. It wasn't a ton.
Mm-mm.
I mean, if you want me to paint the picture of the lightning delay and what happened to the atmosphere at Memorial Stadium, when they announced that the game was going into a lightning delay, there was just a stunned moment of what? And then they have everybody exit their, they have to go to it.
Go inside. Yeah.
Shelter.
Yeah.
And a lot of people with a 3 touchdown difference with 8 minutes left on the clock, they laughed. There were a healthy number of students that stuck around, and you could hear them create quite the commotion. They also started chanting, "We want beer," at one point in there. But when they started to resume play, it was just kind of like, okay, let's just get the game done. It seemed like the outcome was pretty much a formality at that point in time, even though Louisiana Tech did make it a little bit interesting with the late score and then getting the ball back toward the end before the Isaac Gifford interception. But yeah, it's to go cliche, let the air out of the balloon. This was Nebraska's second win under Matt Rule, yet at the end, what would typically have been a lot of people on the field to applaud the team and have a bit of a celebration, they were already out of the stadium. So that was a really interesting twist to how the game concluded. A couple last points to touch on, guys. The run defense continues to be really, really good. Nebraska holds Louisiana Tech to 46 rushing yards on 21 carries. I think Nebraska's run D might be number 1 nationally until the numbers get crunched, and that's going to make the headlines for the matchup against Michigan because they like to run the football. And then special teams wise, we talked earlier this week about what would Nebraska's special teams look like. They need to improve. Well, Brian Buschini punts the ball 6 times today. 5 go inside the 20. He had an average of, I believe, over 45 yards per punt. So Buschini was really good. We saw the Timmy Bleekrode
fake
field goal, which was a nice little wrinkle. And I don't know that the special teams did anything that made you scratch your head. And that's a good sign.
That is a good sign. He did have Luke Reimer, who kind of left, didn't play the rest of the game. Rule said, doesn't look like it's a long-term thing, but he wasn't sure.
Yeah, he didn't have too much to comment on that. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess, until Monday on Reimer's status. But I thought overall, very. It was Nick Henrich after the game who said, to win the Big Ten, you have to win on all three levels. And I felt like tonight was probably Nebraska, or this afternoon was probably Nebraska's most complete performance. I know against NIU they played better defensively, but special teams, just kind of all across the board, this was a very well-rounded game. But yeah, Luke Reimer, we'll have to see what, because he's a difference maker, right? He is someone that can rush the quarterback. The one thing about Nebraska's defense that kind of surprised me tonight, no sacks.
No sacks, and only, where is it? I wrote it down. 4 tackles for loss tonight. So, and again, but I feel like they blitzed way less than they normally, or at least that they have the last 3 games again, because Louisiana Tech throws the ball so much.
I'll trump the no sacks with the defensive backs played really well.
Yeah, they did.
True.
I will continue to be first in line on the Quentin Newsom bandwagon. Played a great game again. Q was great. Omar Brown, he was matched up against Smoke for most of the night, and he did a really nice job. Brown led the team in tackles today with 8. Deshaun Singleton, man, he had a great stick. Isaac Gifford had the pick at the end. Again,
with the assist from former Nebraska player DeColdis Crawford.
Yeah, that's true. But, 3-3-5 defense. I mean, there's 5 guys on the back end, and right now there is no weak link in the defensive backfield. They're all really good. I understand the competition is going to kick up here with the Big Ten play ahead, and I keep saying that. I know they have already played a Big Ten game, but it's the remainder of the schedule is now all league opponents. But I've said all year, I think their secondary is pretty good, and they continue to play very well.
Yep. Needs more turnovers, though. I think, again, Deshaun Singleton talked about that in his postgame presser today. Need to force some more turnovers. Again, -5 now for the turnover margin for the year. Only just the 1 interception today. And I think they just had the 1 last week, too. Javin Wright, I think. But, yeah, so next week, Michigan at home, 2:30 kick, Fox broadcast. The early line that I saw has Michigan as an 18-point favorite. They struggled a little bit against Rutgers today. I feel like it probably gave Nebraska a little bit of a blueprint as to how they want to attack them a little bit. So we'll see next week.
18 is the line. They've already got it set.
That's what DraftKings has. That's an early line.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Well, it is going to get fun. Nebraska's 2-2 exiting the first month of the season. I know Michigan's in September, but first 4 games. So were people, are they really upset with 2-2 right now?
No, I think, again, before the year, if you said you're going to hit the quarter mark of the season and you're going to be 2-2. I think
they was not in agreement. They'd say, yeah, it sounds about right. They're hopeful for 3-1, knowing that there was probably going to be a loss in there.
Yeah.
I think the smart money was probably on 3-1, but 2-2, to me, seems like an acceptable first 4 games of the Matt Rule era.
I think they still have. I mean, I think you guys picked 6 and 7 wins respectively. Again, I think that's still well on the table. Again, looking at the competition they have moving forward, some of the teams that are still left on the schedule, I still think there's 4 or 5 winnable ball games out there for them.
Well, and I think just to kind of wrap things up, I don't want to look too far ahead, but as Kevin mentioned earlier, the coaches are seeing the players, and obviously we've had some injuries that have shaken up what the makeup of this team looks like, but it feels like every week they're getting to know the Huskers more. And this is the first-year head coach. You look at Purdue and Ryan Walters, they're still figuring things out. Wisconsin's still figuring things out. This isn't, Rome wasn't built in a day, but even for this specific season, even if
Deion
Rule has
Sanders found that out in a hard way today.
Yeah, well, even if Rule has a 3-year plan, right? This specific season, I feel like they've just learned more each game along. That kind of allows a lot more of these Big Ten matchups later in the season to be more of toss-ups, in my opinion.
Not only that the coaches are learning Nebraska's personnel, but some of these players are naturally getting better because they're understanding the scheme more. And especially on defense, the Huskers play so many guys, and a lot of them are freshmen or sophomores. So just think about the growth that those individuals are going to have week to week. And I hate to sound like a coach here, but that's why, you can't look big picture here too often. You just have to kind of stay in the moment because, take Riley Van Poppel, for instance, a true freshman. He is 4 games into his Nebraska career. Every week, it's not just the game, it's about the 5 days of practice leading up to the game. Like, there is incredible opportunity for growth every single week for a player like Riley Van Poppel. So you have to maximize what you get on Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I sound like a coach. I'm sorry, but it is so true.
It is
when you have a team like Nebraska currently has.
All good thoughts, Kevin. Anything else, Chase, we need to throw in here before we let everyone go home for the night? All right, he's shaking his head.
I got one last thing. I know people are probably tired of hearing me talk.
No, give me your Sjuts' slant.
The Hall of Fame inductees being on campus, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Sam Cooke being back. I mean, he's a Seward guy.
Yeah.
Had a fantastic career with the Baltimore Ravens. He received a huge ovation. That was really great to see Sam back. Spencer Long, who had a really nice NFL career as well. Did. Maybe not the most notable of the Hall of Fame inductees, but without question deserving of that honor. Troy Dumas. I got a chance to talk to Troy yesterday. He was a linebacker on the 1994 National Championship team. I've learned a lot about Troy over the past 24 hours, and universally beloved and just a great guy. He even had a skull and crossbones pin that he put on his lapel for his induction banquet yesterday, and not to leave out Taylor Martinez.
Yep.
He, of course, received the largest applause when he was recognized prior to today's game, and Taylor's last time being at Memorial Stadium was a decade ago when he was playing. And without question, he was a player that, a lot of kids had his jersey. And one of those kids was Heinrich Haarberg.
Yep.
And there was a lot of good warm and fuzzies that came with Taylor Martinez being back at Memorial Stadium this weekend. So it was so cool to see those individuals, 8 in total, that were recognized. They were officially inducted into the Nebraska Football Hall of Fame on Friday, and then they were recognized prior to the game on Saturday.
And Kevin has full interviews with both Taylor Martinez and Troy Dumas that are on his Twitter, X, whatever. So if you want to check those out, you can find them on 1011now.com, or you can just search through Kevin's Twitter again, which is always chock full of good things. Fortunately, last week and this week, there's no thoughts from the road, though. Have you ever considered doing a thoughts from home?
Thoughts from the couch?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. It would lose it would lose its shine, Bill.
It would.
Like you can't oversaturate something, then
that is true.
Then it wouldn't be as unique and fun.
It's just disappointing. I only get it like 6 or 7 times every season.
Again, that's part of the point.
That's the point. That's the draw. So, all right. Really quickly, I guess I'll add the volleyball team swept Ohio State last night. Again, they looked great. All the freshmen look great. Lainey Choboy, I don't know how she doesn't end up with more scuffs on her elbows and her knees, because she is constantly flying through the air. And Merritt Beeson played really well last night, and they play Minnesota, 12th-ranked Minnesota, Sunday night. And again, Chase, you'll have highlights of that tomorrow night on 10/11 at 10. So, all right. Well, appreciate everyone for tuning in and for watching. So in the 10/11 Now streaming studio, this has been another episode of the REPORT Husker Show. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the 10/11 YouTube channel. And as always, keep it tuned to 10/11 for all the latest news, weather, and sports. For Kevin Sjuts and Chase Matteson, I'm Bill Rentschler. Thanks so much for watching.
You've been listening to the REPORT Husker Show from 1011. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch the REPORT on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and download the 1011 Now app.